So, it's finally time. So, I just finished watching Blue Beetle. After much delay, it's finally on Max, and I can't go so far as to say it's my favorite non-Nolan DC film I've seen in the century, especially given what I'm getting into, but I'll say this at least. Better than the Flash, I suppose. I mean, that said, I don't necessarily. Even though I didn't hate it, like I was worried about being, I didn't necessarily love it like a lot of people did. I mean, I'm currently drafting a spoiler review, who, but I think my best way of looking at it would be getting into the film itself. So let's get started. I'll also apologize in advance if I mispronounce anyone's name here. I mean, not as often as some other creators, but still, I mean. So the film was directed by Angel Manuel Soto, uh, and the script was written by Damian Alcazar, I think. I mean, where. And the film stars Cobra Kai's Zolo Maraduena in the lead role as Jaime Reyes, who ended up being the first of his family to graduate from university, getting his law degree from Gotham City U. However, all is not well back at home. His father is coming from a heart attack. The family business has shut as a result, and if he and other members probably don't find work soon, they're going to lose their home. And through a series of increasingly convoluted events, I mean, he ends up being fused with an alien artifact known as a Scarab, uh, which turns him into the Blue Beetle, which also gains the attention of corrupt magnate Victoria Core, played by Susan Sarandon in full Let Me Speak to Your Manager, her hair and mannerisms, and also clashes with her henchman Carapax, played by Raul Max Trujillo. So, admittedly, it had all the ingredients to succeed, and yet, as I record this, it's even though it has not officially closed its run yet, I think I as well have to call it. Since even though it did better domestically than the second Shazam, worldwide it made less, as well as again, and the third straight one this year here that dropped more than both Wonder Woman 84 and the Suicide Squad. Both movies came out simultaneously on stream during the pandemic. And all things considered, I don't think it was the cast that was the reason why. It's not even my personal top 10 reasons why that happened. And before I get into other detail about the film, is I might as well address those. Let's start with the obvious roadblock, the strikes that were going on at the time with both the WGA as well as SAG-AFTRA, preventing promotion from being done in conventional sense. And for what it's worth, Soto did do admirably, being like a one-man show, giving as many interviews as he could before release. There's also, but again, nevertheless, Tandor factor was indeed Tropical Storm Hillary, and on top of usual, making more likely that people affected will probably be staying closer to home for updates. Would you want to go to a movie in that kind of storm? I wouldn't. I mean, same reason why I had in the last couple of years is I would have seen other movies sooner had there not been like severe winter storm hormones in my area either. And I think one factor I can also say is that's the overall state of like the brand of the stage, especially on film. I mean, admittedly, the subgenre has been, and some people have fatigue, admittedly, but I personally not suffer from it, and I think for me others didn't. And Mutant Mayhem was definitely like the go-to offering, I would say, and also falls under what Forbes referred to as a 2 year trap when Mendelssohn's writing for them. Like, if you make a better movie one's really got burned before, won't care, won't go. So that's kind of exactly what I was worried. Another thing I was worried about the Flash, where its reception could leap over and damage other movies on the marquee from the brand, and I guess that happened here. So there's that. I mean, this factor I've addressed in other when I talk about other topics, but I think it's worth mentioning here. Here is the whole idea was usually conceived as like a DTV production, and let's all be honest with ourselves, you can really tell. Don't get me wrong, some scenes I could also totally reshot for not to make it look somewhat better on a bigger screen, but it's simpler things like the way scenes are staged, the way like the frames are blocked. I mean, once you see it, you can't really unsee it. Personally, it feels less like a bigger blockbuster and more, or like something you would see on CW before some moved away from these kind of productions. I mean, that's where part of me is just sitting there watching this and thinking to myself, oh, so Batgirl apparently could not have hurt, but this did. I am still trying to figure that one out. I'm also will deal with the developments of Coyote versus Acme as they come. And yes, I will acknowledge that, as I point out, fatigue is definitely a problem among a lot of people. Again, I personally not suffer from genre fatigue at this but given the numbers this film and others have posted, I definitely am aware it exists. I mean, so, and for those who weren't like I did, again, the competition is quite stiff, and I pointed out that you can't just scapegoat one or two brands. You have to take on a case by case basis, especially in regards to what I'll get into next about why the studio. So, and competition, even with how unpredictable this year has been theatrically, was quite stiff. I mean, it may have been the first this film to come in at number one after Barbie hit, but that film ended up having some very solid legs and not just the ones that they made for the prop departments. I mean, Oppenheimer or TMNT, which I know it's not the only time it's going to come up either. Even the Make 2 ended up making more than the Blue Beetle did, which, again, will make a decent segue into another factor. I mean, the relative obscurity of this character among the broader public. I mean, I'm not going to act like the character does not have fans, at least based on this battalion that was trying to get the word out, which I ultimately said I could not join. But outside comic readers, which I think was probably most people going to these movies, mean, I don't think the Blue Beetle has the same kind of pop culture or pull that someone like Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, or even the Ninja Turtles have. I mean, where, I mean, I openly admit I'm not a huge fan of any version of the character. I mean, the ones I like, the being the version on Young Justice, as well as the one in Justice 2, where due to factors other character itself, typically how good that show's writing is, and also how NetherRealm made a character I wouldn't be able to tell you much about otherwise actually really fun to play with. So, and I think even in the latter case, it did use as a reference point for some of the visual effects. So, but there's two clear factors I could really will point out about why it's didn't do so hot. I mean, runner-up reason I can cite is how uncertain the economics are looking right now. I mean, in these times, I mean, while obviously people are not going to stop completely going, one thing that I did take away from how unpredictable the summer is people are not getting less selective with what they want to see, but they're getting more selective. And using on top of other factors to point out at the time, such as the heat dome and the smoke warnings, means I think at least at that point I only had enough money to really go see one film that theatrically and ended up picking Ninja Turtles main, which I think most people did, I would say. Hey, and or they want to go see Barbie or Oppenheimer again, and it's just. But the biggest reason is probably one that actually happened before, or I anything. But before that, there's yet another one that didn't fare too well: a lack of promotion. Taking my usual research samples, I at most given times in the lead up to this movie, I only saw at best one TV spot per given day. And it's really very late at night. I mean, when I was watching Toonami, so. And there was only two trailers, the first of which only debuted 3 months ahead of its release in August, the 18th. And which definitely is like a classic way to bury a work. To not really promote it that much. Supposedly there was also merchandise made, but barely any of it has shipped to my area. I only saw like some scattered shirts and costumes. In my closest place where I shop. In real life. And they were tended not to be in that much stock online either. So there's that. The biggest reason I can cite, however, why this didn't do so well is the DCU reboot looming. Similar to what happened with Dark Phoenix's numbers after the Disney and Fox merger was finalized, thereby meaning that it was more or less understood that the X-Men, Deadpool, and Fantastic Four would be entering the MCU in the near future. Will be another time to address that. Once James Gunn made that announcement alongside Peter Safran, it was widely understood that after this year they'd be rebooting the franchise with not just big names like Superman Legacy and Batman Brave the Bold, but also lesser known IPs as The Authority and Creature Commandos. Which begs the question, what was the point of this or other films marquee? And even though they did at least try to tell people that was enough standalone, they wouldn't necessarily have had to have seen the other ones, that wasn't enough. But all the same, I am glad that, much like how James got the job, even with how the Suicide Squad underperformed, even though both It and Birds of Prey were better than the actual Suicide Squad 2016, and that's coming from someone who likes all three of those films. And it's both the character and the same actor are going to remain after the reboot. Zola also has the functions of Cobra Kai back on, as Soda with the proposed Transformers movie. So yeah, they'll be fine. I mean, admittedly, the freshest aspects is indeed he just like the he how just tight knit the lead and his can are. I mean, for all like the daring do involved with an alien scarab fighting some corrupt industrialist villain and her armored attack dog, more or less. But the most effective scenes are her Reyes just hanging out with the family, having himself a party. Well, that's definitely kind of thing I'm working with if this is making me invoke Birdemic references of all things. And I something I mean even some people compare this to a lot of other films, especially stuff like Ant-Man or Spider-Man or Iron Man. I also added in elements of Kamen Rider to the mix, mean like a Western version of that. But at the same time, I'm actually kind of glad that had I brought up a lot of those other movies because these are some examples of what could be improved if the character is going to remain after the reboots. I mean, it wasn't just us that in Spider-Man the that Osborn Hearn was openly corrupt. He was out of desperation when he only took the Goblin Serum because they were about to lose their contract to a rival company before everything went sideways as a result. And I mean, he wasn't just uh, sending people into others' houses for the evils, so to speak. And for all the it being more light and zippy than other films were, there's still dark moments, but it also kind of clashes with these bits with Cord's mercenaries and the whole fact that the house getting blown up, as well as like the dad dying. It's almost like a prerequisite in some superhero stories to lose at least one frontal unit before her the end. And I suppose like the moment that they share here in I guess a space between spaces is fine, though. Oh, I still personally felt more for what was going on in Rocket in Volume 3 in some respects. And it looks kind of like the ancestral plane, and if it was sold at some bodega uh, for a few dollars, man. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's just the fact that it started out as like a Max project is kind of interfering with my ability to really see ones. Like even the whole Palmyra City, people were trying to champion didn't do a whole lot for me. I just thought looked kind of like the Schumacher version of Gotham with at least 20% more gentrification in it. So there's that. Hmm. And part of me can tell they're reaching for much greater heights than the film ultimately reached. In terms of its cast. And I personally do not think that it didn't do so hot because as I leaned too far into that aspect. If anything, using other examples like the Black Panther films of Shang-Chi, they didn't lean far enough for my taste. Is where they made those characters as lineage like the heart of the not just everything from like the story, the characters to the visual presentation. And part of me can see that kind of idea. Yeah, just imagine like the culture being represented being Mesoamerican rather than an African or East Asian. Heck, even Bobby Krullock's music in this movie gives me some kind of Black Panther vibes at times. It's granted not quite as memorable as the music in those films, but still. And I definitely but even the whole idea, I do at least reference both visually in terms of dialogue, other superheroes who's in this franchise. Is and just to say, like with the Flash is mentioned, there's probably another timeline that Barry ended up inadvertently messing with. Or the infamous line from Uncle Rudy about Batman, played by George Lopez. As I understand a lot of people took umbrage with it, but I was just thinking, like, wait, are we talking about Keaton? Are we talking about Affleck? Are we talking about Clooney? Are we talking about Rob? Are we talking about who's going to be Brave and the Bold? Who? I know that that normally my first viewing thoughts tend to be a bit less as all over the place and expansive than this, but to be fair, the movie itself kind of gave out the feeling when I was watching it as well. I mean, one moment you have a scene of out of Chaparral, Colorado, a very popular show, south of the border, I would say, as well as Nana's telenovelas. But on the other, you have references to things like the School of the Americas, the Iran Contra scandal, and how Victoria and Carapax had a role in both. And again, and that kind of feels like also a bit from like the League of Shadows and Batman Begins. There's even a moment near the end where it's a similar scenario of a loophole. Often Reyes is reluctant to use use lethal takedowns, kind of like how Holland's in Spider-Man is, at least initially. But I won't go into much detail, like with my spoiler review, but it kind of gives a similar vibe. Like, I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you. Also, I know this comparison is definitely going to be really heavy, but to compare this to who one of the best films in and out of the comic space I've seen this year, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I feel that how they handled old Miguel O'Hara as an antagonist, it was a lot more understandable with him and why he was trying to preserve the canon so much. It's trying to not to break the taboo. Who, because he himself only wanted to see his daughter again, and and again, I'm working on a spoiler who does that as well. It's just maybe because of I'm kind of a person that even I can tell how there's quite variation qualities here alone. Even someone who's more inclined to who give the benefit of the doubt up to like push play. Hey, and likewise, I feel like they handle like Miles' background hound better as well as the other variants of Spider-Man across the many universes in their Rose Gallery. I mean, they did a really good job with the Spot changing like a joke villain from the comic adaptations into one of the most dangerous threats faced in any Spider-Man film. Um, I, the Carapax, I just felt like a less developed version of Killmonger in some respects, where he went really crazy and blind with rage for a lot of his life, but there are also other sides of the character I couldn't help but feel sorry for him. Um, and a lot of moments here, if I'm just being honest, don't really feel totally earned. I mean, they feel kind of just there and they're happening because they're what you would expect. I mean, I kind of, even with not counting the online summer to scrub through, it's, I definitely was able to telegraph what was going to happen fairly closely, a, with every single beat. I mean, while this may be a bit higher on the quality scale than The Flash is, at least that one was a very memorable whole dumpster fire, depending on your her state of mind. I mean, I'm really gonna have to watch it again because I'm already hard pressed to really think of anything that really stood out at me. Personally, if I'm being completely honest, I cannot say for certain whether there'll be another movie anytime soon, but using 2021's The Suicide Squad and the subsequent Peacemaker series as a barometer, I think a TV show could work better where have more space to figure out his powers he's got, as well as just trying to help people in and out of his family. Again, kind of like a U.S. version Common Rider. I mean, and that's you got balancing like the monsters of the week with the life lessons. I mean, I know the character previously appeared on TV in the final season of Smallville as well, but there were definitely limitations for that time we could do on TV in terms of budget. I mean, maybe you couldn't have done it then, but I think now you could. I mean, supposedly he's going to be in this Booster Gold TV series he's working on. Not a huge fan of that character either, but I guess we'll see how that goes. I mean, because this is a strange movie, and just for the record, I would state that my favorite non-Nolan DC films include, in the last 5 years, are Phoenix's Joker, her Rob's The Batman, George Clooney's Justice League, and James's The Suicide Squad. I mean, so I want to make I can definitely say that this isn't a terrible movie. I feel like some people are trying to claim, including that's really terrible. One with some really cringy bits, which would basically be like if I did a similar bit. It's one talking about Shin Kamen Rider and just had a bunch of rice bowls and Pokemon on the screen. But still, I can't go as far as say, hey, I love this much other people do. I mean, yeah. Well, I know a lot of people are kind of disappointed about the returns specifically, but sometimes that's what happens. I mean, that sometimes like the better received movie, quote unquote, doesn't always do better at the box office. I mean, 2021's The Suicide Squad compared to the 2016 film were a perfect example of this. I mean, I would probably give this movie, I have to say right now, a 2.5 out of 4 or stars or 3.5 out of 5 stars. I mean, so with that being the case, is I definitely have another video tomorrow that I've been wanting to do for quite some time. Another I want to really work on for Thursday, making decent progress on. You might say that it's a supersonic flight, and I got how to keep it going to save the planet from disaster. Anyway, that'll be all for now, and I will see you all again very soon. So take care, everyone. Hmm.